Here we go again, folks. Another year down and plenty more WODs checked off the list. Some good, some bad, and most somewhere down the middle. As with last year, I've gone through all of this year's D-Zoned and H-Zoned videos and picked out the best and worst of the lot, along with a few honorable mentions for good measure. Without further ado, let's get to it. The fifth worst is Warzone II. This one looks fairly average, and its progression trends on the obscure side. It takes a lot of time and running around to figure out where to go, with the teleporters it features being fairly unintuitive. Those traits alone would already flag this as a below-average map. However, the biggest sin it commits is simply being boring. The only weapon the player gets is the shotgun, and you have to take down far too many barons and cacodemons with it. It doesn't take long before you're begging for something a bit punchier or tempted to just use IDFA and pump rockets or BFG shots into the bigger demons. While some of the other maps in the Warzone series are worth checking out, I'd give this one a miss. The fifth best map is MK Mines. The beginning of MK Mines is rather bold, revealing your final adversary, a cyber demon, before you even begin the map proper. What's worse is that you're forced to wake him up and suffer his wrath in order to be allowed to exit the starting area. Then you stumble into the next hallway and are caught up in the middle of an exploding barrel trap. Fortunately, the rest of the map isn't quite that mean. Instead, you're treated to a trek through the map's dark, titular mines and all of its various nooks, crannies, and side caverns. All the while, you're gathering resources and preparing for the ultimate battle against that pesky siege cow. I would say this map's biggest crime is perhaps being a bit too generous with resources. Still, I certainly can't fault its fun factor. The fourth worst map is Room 3. This is perhaps the best example of a map that should have picked a lane and stayed in it. While I think it's safe to say this is undoubtedly intended as a deathmatch map, the author added in enemies and said it was single-player compatible. Unfortunately, they didn't seem to realize that the pile of weapons they sprinkled in for deathmatch allows players to make short work of Disbarrel, which immediately kills off all of the other enemies in this map. Whoopsie. The fourth best map is Doom Church? Yeah, we'll go with Doom Church. Now this is an unholy cathedral. This map features a surprising amount of detail, some great environmental variety, and a good collection of secret areas without feeling overly long. It has some very well-balanced combat, giving the player a fair number of resources to work with, but not so many that allows them to get complacent. This map's biggest downside is that there's no easy way to deal with the imps in the outdoor area, so getting max kills on this map is far from trivial. If you can overlook that, however, this one is definitely worth a look. The third worst map is Aurora 1. This is a very early example of a slaughter map, and it really doesn't land. You're faced with overwhelming odds and are given minimal equipment to start with. The only way you're going to have a chance with this one is if you know exactly where to go. Not only that, but if you really know what you're doing, you can exit the map without killing anything. Pro tip, it's literally going up one of the other elevators. That's it. Kind of an odd design decision, but at least you have the option of bowing out if necessary. The third best map is Argus. The best maps this year seem to generally trend long, but this one's a notable exception. This one is short, punchy, and gets straight to the point. The visuals in this entry are solid. Its secrets are well hidden, but not so much as to be frustrating, and the combat is fun, engaging, and intense, with the weapon and ammo balance feeling very nicely tuned. This is a great map for if you're looking for a quick demon-slaying romp, and it works really well in Nightmare. The second worst map is KIII. If you're psychic and can guess the author's intent, you might actually enjoy this one. If not, there's no way on earth you're going to figure out where to go without a lot of trial, error, and fiddling, and possibly some time in Doom Builder. You need not look further than the opening room's Guess the Line Def puzzle to get an idea of this map's problems. There's a whole bunch of pillars set over a pit of nukage. In the nukage, there are 3 teleporter pads. Each side of each teleporter pad has a unique teleporter destination. Only one of these brings you to the mandatory blue key. Unless you either get lucky or know exactly where to go, you'll be spending a bunch of time swimming through radioactive slime to find the right line def. This map does have some interesting things going on here and there, but it really doesn't make up for the downright hostile progression. The second best map is Sub River. Now, this one was a surprise. While D-Zone tends to be a bit of a contentious collection with a set of mostly average levels, H-Zone tends to lean far more heavily towards deathmatch maps, with its single-player offerings generally being below average. This is not one of those. Heretic isn't exactly known for its texture variety, but Subriver makes full use of what it has available, offering a surprising amount of visual variety during its runtime. From the subterranean river that is this map's namesake, to the tomb near the start, the dock and the house connected to it, and the grand cathedral and manor, there's plenty of areas to explore and plenty of monsters to squash and secrets to uncover. Now, before I announce the worst map of the year, I'd like to give a special shout out to 2 maps from this year. Let's call the first one a dishonorable mention, with the second one being a bit different. Let's say just a mention. I don't know. The dishonorable mention this year goes to Pain, which also receives the Troll Award. You think you're clever, eh? Well, guess what? I know how to use D-Hacked. Get wrecked. I wouldn't feel right calling this one a dishonorable mention, but let's just give a shout out to Zone 3, and I'd like to give it the Nostalgia Award. Let me start off by saying that this is not, and never was, a good map. It's easy to get soft-locked, there's no unified theme, the combat's a bit lame, and the layout makes no sense. Even so, I can't help but love it. Not so much how it plays or how it looks, but because of what it symbolizes. This was a map made by a couple friends from Melbourne. This is evident from both its text file and the wholesome signature plainly visible on the auto map. It's kind of a reminder that there's a human element behind all these creations. In the past, I've questioned why people would release amateurish maps, but as time rolls on, I'm starting to understand more and more. It makes me wish I would have had the courage to release some of my first maps. If I had, I might be able to look back on them now, have a good laugh with all of you, and be able to appreciate how far I've come. Unfortunately, many of my original works have been lost to failing disk media, accidental deletion, forever lost to time. They weren't good, that much I promise you, but I still wish I could see them one last time. Thank you, Mike and Steven, for sharing your work and unintentionally offering me some much-needed perspective. I hope you're both doing well, and may Zone 3 live on. Oh, with that out of the way, let's talk about the #1 worst map this year, Arsenal II. It doesn't have enough resources, it gets a bit too wild with the fake walls, and it uses animated textures a bit too liberally. At least it has a few rooms with different light levels, but it's more than a little rough around the edges. It kind of feels like it's meant to be played with cheats. Probably wouldn't recommend this one. Alright, it's only fair that we throw in a couple honorable mentions, right? Let's go. The first honorable mention goes to Doom_No_R, and this one gets the Doom Cute Award. There's something to be said about an early WAD that puts so much effort into delivering recognizable objects in Doom. I gave this one a 10, which in hindsight was a bit too generous for its gameplay and overall flow, but it's undeniable that the author put in a great deal of work in depicting all of this map's various props, whether they be computer terminals, bathroom fixtures, desks, or chairs. Most early examples of Doom Cute tend to appear a bit uncanny in terms of scale, given that 3D previews weren't a thing back then and testing turnaround times were often non-trivial, but the author of this one nailed it. The second honorable mention goes to Skywood, which gets the Fantasy Doom Award. This one might be cheating a bit, given that it wasn't picked by the Wadnator, but I feel like this list would be incomplete without mentioning it. While this WAD is rather quaint by today's standards, when it was created it did a solid job of putting the player into a cool, fantastical environment. Custom graphics are backed up by a trio of fun, solid maps, concluding with an, epic showdown against a dragon. The main downside is that the sound replacements really don't fit. While the graphics and map design work well together to give you a nice, trippy Alice in Wonderland vibe, the Army of Darkness soundbites are a firm reminder that you're playing a 90s Doom WAD. Still, I'd recommend giving this one a shot. Many thanks to Cypec for recommending this to me. And now, the best map of D-Zoned 2023 is Cross T. Given that this map sits in the E3M5 slot, I can't help but think that the author wasn't the biggest fan of Unholy Cathedral and decided to make their own take on it. You know what? They pulled it off. The texture work is reserved, yet varied, containing splashes of hell, green marble, and little sprinkles of tech base. The secrets are clever, but still discoverable. The enemy encounters and traps are competent, with the overall difficulty being perhaps a bit more advanced than what you'd expect from an early Doom WOD, but still pretty manageable. The weapon and ammo balance are generally good, though perhaps a touch too generous in some places. I don't know. Still, this map is polished enough that, for the most part, it wouldn't seem out of place in an iWOD. Masterful work. And that's a wrap. Are there any WODs that you think should have been on this list? If so, let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to see what you all think. Now, before we say farewell to 2023, I just wanted to say thank you. This year alone, more than 1,000 of you subscribed to this little YouTube channel, and I still have a hard time believing it. I've said this a few times before, but when I started uploading Doom content, I was hoping to maybe get like 100 or 200 subscribers, but now we're sitting at just over 1,500. I can't thank all of you enough for your support. Here's to an incredible 2024. And with that, I hope you all have a safe and happy new year. Take it easy.